So good afternoon, distinguished authorities from the government of Canarias, delegates, creators, and ladies and gentlemen. I am very pleased to be here at distance, unfortunately. I hope that for the next occasions, we're going to be able to go to that beautiful Gran Canaria. I would like to begin by thanking our co-host, Casa Africa, for the generous invitation and for the leadership in bringing so many women entrepreneurs to this conversation on the key role of women in the international economic development agenda. So I am Carolina Quintana, and I am the coordinator for partnerships and networks of the Creative Economy program in UNCTAD, which is part of the United Nations. The program was created about 15 years ago, and it came about after several developing countries approached us in order to ask advice on how to make money from their music and their cultural and creative industries. So we did a study and came to the conclusion that there were many obstacles, difficulties for developing countries to maximize the development gain from their cultural products. So we realized that these problems were shared by many other developing and least developed countries. So we set out a program in order to tackle these vulnerabilities and to maximize trade and development gains. Since 2004, UNCTAD has played a leading role in analyzing the creative industries. We obtained a mandate called Nairobi Maafikiano Mandate, which we obtained 2 years ago in Kenya, in Nairobi, after the 14th ministerial meeting of UNCTAD, where the program was created to provide insight into the creative economy program. Now, we would like to highlight that there is an important economic value in these creative industry sectors. And first, I would like to say that these sectors are rooted in traditional knowledge and cultural heritage. And they also include more technology-oriented sectors. So what I'm talking about here is about music, cinema, fashion, art crafts, visual arts, books, design, new media, such as video games, digitalized content, creative content, and also creative services like architectural services and advertising services. Now, all of these sectors have the potential to generate income through trade and intellectual property rights. And we have seen over the years an increasing number of African countries asking UNCTAD for support to develop these sectors. The Creative Economy program aims to promote the creative economy as a new source of growth. It aims to support government initiatives for the development of integrated public policies and institution building. It aims to liaise with governments, artists, creative entrepreneurs, academia, and civil society to strengthen the creative economy, in particular in developing countries. And it aims to provide demand-driven policy advice and technical assistance to governments in these fields. In addition to that, we also work with other UN agencies like UNESCO, UNDP, UNIDO, and WIPO, who are somehow in their work involved in the research of a creative economy. We also promote networking. So we have a UNCTAD Creative Economy Network. I will share the link after my presentation and invite all of you to please join this network. It's a platform to exchange knowledge and to establish contacts with other entrepreneurs in different fields and sectors of creative industries. And above all, it aims to make a significant contribution to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Here I am sharing in this slide the report that we are producing is going to be released by mid-December here in UNCTAD in the UN. It's an important research work because it presents data. And as we all know, governments, interest, investments move by the availability of data. So we have come to produce country profiles in order to highlight the trends, both trade and production in this dynamic sector of the world economy. And I would like to give you some sneak peek of the upcoming report, which is called Creative Economy Outlook and Country Profiles, Trends in International Trade in Creative Industries. By the way, this report, which covers 137 countries, also includes countries from the ECOWAS, and we will be happy to share some of these profiles. It will be freely available in our website as well. Now, the potential of the creative industries, especially for developing countries, is highlighted in these reports in order to increase their production, exports, and share in creative industries markets. And at the same time, it makes the case for increased investment by the state and the private sector in creative industry. So we are really trying to develop public and private partnership frameworks that enable the cooperation from public and private sector. The world, as we have all been witnessing, is recovering from an economic crisis that has impacted the production, trade, and economic development. And as part of this recovery, major developments are taking place in the global economy that will shape the future of society. So there are new trends that countries will do well in taking into account. We need to develop, there are emerging new ways of thinking. These are necessary to help countries, particularly developing countries, to adapt to emerging trends that will affect the development paradigm. The knowledge-based economy and creative society are coming to the fore. You may have heard that many cities around the world are trying to develop and put at the forefront of their development strategies, creativity, and their cultural assets in order to make cities more creative, to attract more talents. So we are coming into this new age of creative societies and creative economies. Investment in knowledge is overtaking investment in physical capital. Skills and innovative potential are becoming key for driving growth. Another aspect that we cannot ignore is digitalization, which is bringing changes in business models and consumption patterns. Digitalization is also changing creative content and creative processes. Actually, some people are putting the question on whether is it technology that is driving creativity, or is it creativity that is helping technology to develop? Because one cannot survive without the other. And this is to say that as technology advances, more creative content will be needed. And this is where a huge opportunity lays for developing countries. It is also causing major labor market disruptions like e-commerce. Opportunities and challenges. So we have seen these changes are producing both opportunities and challenges. On the one hand, the digital age is revolutionizing the marketplace and democratizing access for both businesses and consumers. And on the other hand, problems remain. With the exception of China, developing countries still monopolize the production and trade of creative goods and services. So developing countries continues to suffer roadblocks, policy gaps, and inadequate infrastructure. Globalization, interdependencies, and imbalances. Globalization has created complex interdependencies while maintaining global imbalances. So UNCTAD research has shown that many small businesses in developing countries, including creative ones, face serious challenges. These include problems in reaching creative goods and services and export markets, and difficulties in accessing complementary services, such as logistics for shipping goods abroad, insufficient knowledge of regulatory requirements in exporting and importing countries, and insufficient trade finance. Together, these problems prevent SMEs in developing countries from achieving their potential. So UNCTAD is actually supporting developing countries to put in place integrated policy framework. As our report shows, the creative sector in many developing countries has been held back by the lack of an integrated creative economy policy framework. We need to take into account an integrated framework that need to address the issues of finance for the startups, because this is where a lot of new ideas are born. Entrepreneurs in developing countries are often held back by inadequate capacities to deal with digital age competitive requirements. And an integrated policy framework will need to find ways to improve entrepreneurs' access to complementary business and support services, especially in marketing and in distribution. Our research shows that the management of intellectual property rights is often an obstacle for entrepreneurs in developing countries. Creatives often face the problem of uncertain and inconsistent income streams and need advice on how to manage these uncertainties. In order to take advantage of the knowledge economy, creative economy entrepreneurs of the future will need to acquire the appropriate information age skills and competencies. The creative economy stands at the new frontier of development, moving on from industrialization, commodities exploitation, and manufacturing into the knowledge-based economy. We firmly believe that if developing countries develop and nurture a more integrated policy framework, the creative industries will be able to widen and deepen the opportunities for growth, trade, and economic development. And to conclude, I would like to say a few words about an example of creative industries in Africa, in a sector that carries an important potential, because creativity is the oil of the 21st century. This is a quote from Ross. It's an expert on creative economy. And where he says that creativity and culture are nowadays intensely hailed by global development institutions as the wondrous stuff, the magical passkey to Africa's sustainable development. It is poised to propel inclusive growth, cultural diversity, and job creation, especially for young people, peripheral communities, and women. Under the auspices of the UN agencies such as UNESCO, UNDP, and UNCTAD, creative industries will help Africa leapfrog into emerging high-growth global economies, according to our latest report. And also, creative industries are Africa's sleeping giant. So we have been hearing more and more about these young and hip African creative entrepreneurs, from ballet dancers, from fashion designers and poets, to photographers, to architects and game developers. They are all all coming in the media, in different platforms, and we are beginning to see the boom of creativity in Africa. So UNCTAD's focus is to support creative industries policies that aspire to directly drive the development process through job creation, environmental sustainability, and social cohesion, and interlink with other industries. So while Africa may boom with creative talent, the continent so far has not been able to profit much from it. Currently, Africa's share of the global trade in creative products remains marginal. And in terms of employment creation, we know little about how many people the creative industries actually employ, who they employ, and under what circumstances. So this is why UNCTAD is looking at these sectors to widen and deepen their opportunities for growth, for trade, and economic development. And there is potential. Africa is home to 7 of the fastest growing economies in the world, and about 70% of the continent's population live in countries that have had experienced average growth in excess of 4%. So diversifying African economies and furthering regional integration is part of UNCTAD's work. And one case in point is the textile and clothing sector. This is a creative industry. It is labor intensive and offers employment opportunities, particularly for youth and women. It provides an opportunity to generate more skill and unskilled jobs, and offers tremendous scope for African countries to participate in regional and global integration. The fashion industry globally is expected to double in the next 10 years, generating up to 5 trillion annually. The combined apparel and footwear market in sub-Saharan Africa is estimated to be worth $31 billion, according to data from Euromonitor International. This presents a vast opportunity for African women and youth at various levels of the value chain, from design to production to marketing. So moving the continent up the textile and clothing value chain is essential and can have an important economic impact in local economies. About 200 million people in Africa are aged between 15 and 24. This is what we call the youth bracket. And according to the UN, making Africa the continent with the youngest population in the world. So Africa will therefore have the largest labor force in the world in the next 3 to 4 decades, filled with youth who can sustain the fashion industry. If there is any time to invest in the industry, it is now. So also, I would like to say that Africa's economic growth has provided more Africans with more disposable income as the middle class grows. The aim is to support the growth of the African textile and fashion sector through a focus on building the capacities of small and medium-sized enterprises in the textile and clothing sector, especially for women and youth. So Africa accounts for less than 1% of the creative goods exports, despite the boom of creativity, which we have seen in so many African designers, well known internationally. And yet, we need to consider that close to 10% of the world's cotton comes from Africa. So we need to start building on these advantages and potentialities. What we need to do is promote more investment in the textile and the fashion sector. A lot of women are involved in these sectors, and it is increasingly necessary for them to be able to access financing for entrepreneurs and incubating and accelerating these startups. Also to attract foreign direct investment, the FDIs, And this is done through institutional reforms and building productive capacities in local firms is the first step, and it will stimulate local entrepreneurship and facilitate skills building. We also need to face the challenges that range from weak supply chain, energy shortages, and high energy costs to high transport, to logistics and custom facilities costs, a lack of international partners, and substandard infrastructure, and the need to act promptly to support Africa's ambitions to industrialize. So they also need to increase access to markets through e-commerce. The rise of mobile and e-commerce is especially relevant in the fashion industry. Millennials will continue to lead the way in the e-commerce and mobile space, and the shopping app fever is set to spread to every retail area. So it is time to catch up with consumers spending 80% of their time on media through mobile applications. It is not longer something that can be ignored. So it is very important to put in place strategies that allow countries to develop the distribution infrastructure. That's what the problem is when we're talking about exporting the clothing from Africa, and also the logistics. This requires the intervention of the states and also the private sector. But we also need to work on developing skills and qualifications, business plans, marketing, branding. All of these are important for promoting entrepreneurship. Promoting regional integration through the right policies aimed at supporting private sector development at national and regional levels is also essential. And promoting the use of information and communication technologies is also necessary. So Africa's creative industries, from fashion, from film, from music, from literature, among others, have started wielding notable influence both locally and internationally. This speaks volume of the creativity of Africans, which has led to the growth of the fashion industry thus far. There are a lot of opportunities. We would like more and more entrepreneurs to look at these sectors. As technology evolves, there will be an increasing demand for more creative content that is being circulated by internet in the production and the distribution of films, of music, in the selling of design goods, art crafts. So the scope is big, and Africa is being noticed. The demand is picking up, and we see a great opportunity for African women entrepreneurs to participate in these markets and benefit from these new emerging sectors in the global economy. I will finish my presentation here. I will just say that I have here, I don't know if we have time, but we last year organized a fashion show in Nairobi, Kenya, with a local designer in order to showcase the creativity of local designers, fashion. And well, if we have time, I will be happy to put it. Otherwise, I remain here for any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Carolina. Gracias por tu presentación tan interesante sobre el sector de la economía creativa. Y bueno, paso aquí la palabra al público por si tiene alguna cuestión o alguna pregunta que hacerte relacionada con tu presentación.
Gracias.
Tenemos una pregunta.
Hola. Yo soy Jael Alves Monteiro.
Habla un poquito más alto para
¿Más alto?
Sí.
Yo soy Jael Alves Monteiro de Cabo Verde y a mí me interesa lo que nuestra compañera estaba hablando, que el área textil, porque yo trabajo en una empresa textil y me interesa tener más informaciones de la pauta que ella ha hablado hoy. No sé cómo hacer por email, el contacto de ella.
Vale, no sé. Vale.
Sí, me gustaría poder compartir con ustedes un estudio que realizamos para Cabo Verde, que se llama Cabo Verde's Creative Economy, Leveraging Culture and Creativity for Sustainable Development. Este informe está disponible en nuestro sitio web. Creo que sería un punto de partida importante para contestarle a la compañera que hizo la pregunta. Ahí estamos hablando de las políticas existentes en Cabo Verde para apoyar todo lo que es el tema de cultura e industria creativa, y también sugerimos un plan de acción sobre sobre pasos futuros a emprender por parte del sector privado y del sector público, y también por los emprendedores creativos, para desarrollar sus negocios, para integrarse mejor en los mercados internacionales. Y bueno, hablamos de una serie de productos creativos que se están desarrollando en Cabo Verde, y yo creo que sería muy importante que pudiera tener acceso a esta publicación que realmente fue hecha en cooperación con el Ministerio de Cultura, y bueno, que es más o menos el modelo que hemos estado siguiendo en otros países.
Muy bien, gracias Carolina. Si hay alguna pregunta, alguna última pregunta, sí, tenemos una más.
Mi nombre es Marcela Serna, vivo aquí en Gran Canaria, trabajo en la parte de producción creativa, soy comunicadora social y periodista, y mi pregunta va orientada sobre las políticas o las estrategias que se pueden implementar con respecto a la comunicación creativa, porque cuando vas a África conoces una cantidad de personas que desarrollan en diferentes ámbitos, ¿no? La parte fashion, la parte de producción de ropa, artesanías, pero están desligadas de la comunicación, entonces se hace todo muy en silencio, y cuando están desligadas esas áreas, pues no se logra una comunicación al mundo. Entonces sabemos que existen las redes sociales que nos facilitan el intercambio de comunicación, pero no hay una coalición o una comunicación creativa que logre como resaltar el trabajo de África y la producción creativa que hay allí a otras partes del mundo, porque hay mucho ruido virtual, ¿no? Hay mucha comunicación todo el tiempo y estamos saturados todo el tiempo por los medios masivos y por mucha información que ahora se genera. Entonces, como la estrategia de comunicación creativa para proyectar la producción de todas estas personas que tienen el talento, pero no tienen los medios para darse a conocer.
Sí, gracias, porque es una pregunta muy interesante. En realidad, el esfuerzo que estamos tratando de hacer cuando vamos a los países es, digamos, establecer un grupo de trabajo, vamos a decir, una agenda colectiva de trabajo entre los actores involucrados en lo que es la industria creativa, que también incluye los comunicadores. Es cierto que hay que trabajar, hay que reforzar más esa articulación. Yo personalmente creo que la comunicación viene siendo como un eje muy importante para dar a conocer justamente qué es esa economía creativa, quiénes son, qué están haciendo, cuál es el impacto que tienen. Entonces, es un punto muy relevante. Nosotros, cuando viajamos a los países, estuvimos recientemente en Kenia, como te comenté, tuvimos dentro del público muchos comunicadores, tuvimos muchas personas trabajando en blogs, muchas personas en Twitter, muchas personas en prensa de medios más formales. Y la verdad nos llamó la atención, bueno, ver tantos de ellos ahí. Y creo que sí, que tienes razón y creo que es una parte importantísima que tiene que integrarse más dentro de esa industria. Y ahí está el reto, cómo trabajar más articuladamente entre los diferentes actores que conforman la industria creativa.
Vale. Tenemos una última pregunta.
Thank you. My name is Agatha Johnson. I'm the president of BPW Freetown, Sierra Leone. I've been in the consulting industry for almost 30 years, and now I'm moving to the creative industry. Textiles, apparels, and accessories. In fact, I'll be displaying some of my accessories here later. My question is, when you enter a country, like when you went to Kenya, how do you work? Do you work with the government, being a UN agency, or do you work with individual entrepreneurs? Because I'm in the process of setting up, I have a small factory for the accessories, but I'm thinking of setting up a garment factory to export to the US. So how can I work with you? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. We work with government. Our counterpart usually is the Ministry of Commerce and the Ministry of Culture. Now, we also work at city levels. So they are our main counterparts. But we also need to work with the creative sectors. So we work with the associations, fashion associations, but not only with fashion. I gave the example of fashion because this is what we did recently in Kenya. But with regard to your question of how we can work together, we normally work with the governments, and we hope that through policy dialogues that we organize when we come to the country and try to discuss the status of the creative industries and invite people from the different sectors, we hope to come together and discuss what are the strategies, where are the problems, and take it from there. Because as we mentioned before, many times we go there and the sector is not articulated, is not communicating with each other, and there's no data available. So we need to start this conversation from the beginning. For working with UNCTAD, I think that I would suggest first to join our network, and this is something we have a special UNCTAD Creative Economy Network. I can send you the link. There you will meet other people that are also in the fashion industry, not only, that is also for other people. But I think that this exchange with other people working on fashion can be helpful. We can also, depending on your needs, we can try to see if we can set up some kind of a project or assistance. But then, we will need to see where, because now I just came back 3 weeks ago from China, from Shanghai, and I was talking with the director of the Shanghai Design Week, and I was telling her that we need some free space to exhibit some African designers, and we're discussing this. So you see, in this kind of initiative, I see there could be some cooperation with you. So just to keep it a little bit general at this point, I see that there could be some cooperation, but we really need to talk and see how. But it will be a pleasure to be able to talk with you.
Bueno, pues muchas gracias nuevamente, Carolina. por acompañarnos en este primer encuentro de asociaciones de mujeres de la CDAO. Muchas gracias y hasta la próxima.
Muchas gracias a ustedes. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Gracias.